All right, thank you. My name's Ari Vanderhoeven. I'm a principal project manager with Seagate Technology. Been in this industry for, wow, a long time. Spent 18 years at Microsoft, mostly in the kernel team. I did a lot of security work there. And we're going to look today at storage security from two aspects, opportunities and challenges. A big part of the challenges are also around sustainability and making sure that we have both are able to attack the security challenges we see, but also the fact that we're data center industry as a whole, and storage is an exceptionally large part of that, can stop this whole show. It really can, and we'll get to our point here in a moment. And we'll start with this quote from Warren Buffett, that it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. And this drives much of our thinking around security today. You know, if you look at Morgan Stanley, a couple of years ago, they just shipped a bunch of drives off on a truck, didn't sanitize them, no data was lost, cost them probably over $100 million. So small mistakes, even with no actual data loss, are huge. If you look at the threats in the world today, if you look at the geopolitical threats, if you look at the growth of data and the fact that the data we produce today is going to be out there in the ecosystem for years and years and years, with quantum compute coming, there's this huge weight of the industry coming down on us saying security is paramount. And you see this in the OCP security group. At the other side, from the boardroom, from the investor side, we're also seeing that you also have to have a sustainability approach, which means you cannot be destroying hundreds of millions of drives a year that all have usable life left. That's as if you're a Hertz rental car, and at 30,000 miles, instead of reselling the car, you're crushing the car because you're worried about reputational loss, or you're worried about something that I sometimes call this the absurdity of security. It is important. And you know, those of us who work in security, you know, pays the bills. We're supposed to be paranoid. At the same time, you have to take into account the impact it has on everybody in this room. So let's look at the challenges we have today. And you know, let's face it, cybercrime is a multi-trillion-dollar a year revenue industry. I think I've seen estimates that if it were a GDP for a country, it would be the third or fourth largest GDP of a nation in the world. Don't underestimate cybercrime. Don't underestimate the threats out there. We're not saying that. And today's storage devices will be in the ecosystem for years. So what we ship today, you know, we ship a 30 terabyte drive today. That's an incredible amount of data. Even if it's out there 20 years from now, we have to protect it. That being said, you know, we just simply cannot destroy the number of usable drives we have left today, that we have crushed today, that go into these machines that first of all degauss them, then again they disintegrate them into 2 millimeter by 2 millimeter or smaller chunks. That is an extreme version of the security side of the equation. And honestly, if we look at what's going on at OCP today with programs like SAFE, programs like Lock and Calyptra, those are more agile than what's going on in standards. So we're all very supportive of what's going on in the OCP security group. At the same time, we're trying to balance that, and the two groups are talking back and forth. We're trying to balance that to how do we have a sustainable planet? How do we make sure that data centers are not already exceeding the airline industry, for example, in CO2 emissions, and going way beyond that, according to Moore's law. You know, these are two opposed forces that are coming to a hit, and I think OCP is the place where we address this best. So here's a key statistic, and this comes from a study done by Carnegie Mellon and Microsoft Azure. And it's a challenge for the planet to counter the security challenges we have. Storage accounts for 33% of the operational. That's what's happening in the data centers today, and a lot of that's energy use. 61% of the embodied emissions in Azure data centers, according to this study. We are having a really hard time measuring embodied carbon, especially in the semiconductor industry. So expect these numbers to change over time. This was a call for more studies, but we do know that semiconductor manufacturing, especially the SSD side of the storage equation, is highly carbon intensive, and those are mostly non-renewable. So it's a huge challenge for us today. So this is a further look into that study. Gives you a look as to where storage is accounting for this huge part of the equation. And again, everybody in this room, everything that's going on here comes to a screeching halt if we cannot control every part of this equation. I know AI is big and the compute side is probably starting to play a bigger role, but I think storage is often overlooked. And there are myths around storage sustainability and carbon emissions. One of those myths is that SSDs are somehow more, and they are sometimes operationally, more energy efficient, but if you look at embodied carbons, that's just a myth, and we have to tackle the whole thing. And we applaud companies like Microsoft and like others who are really doing a better job now of really understanding what the real carbon impact is of our industry. Storage is a big part of that. And there's some more data here I won't go into in detail, but we do encourage you to go look this up on Hot Carbon. So there are a lot of quotes. I just picked one from The Guardian last week, but we are already at 2% or higher. Folks in this room, the data center industry as a whole, of what we are consuming on the planet, and we know that's going to grow. It's going to grow with AI. It's going to grow, if you look at the growth of the exabyte growth in the storage industry, it's off the charts. And as AI moves more towards a storage model where we have to store the data that's being generated by AI, that's only going to grow and grow with time. So this is an existential crisis to the industry. And we can't say that it's a security problem, we can't say it's a planet problem, it's really both. And we can't have a planet that has 2, 3, 4% increases in temperature over time when we're part of the problem. So this is where we at Seagate, as a storage company who has a foundation in sustainability, we feel the need to speak up, and that's why we're here today. So, and it's complex, and we greatly applaud the OCP security group, the OCP sustainability groups, the better carbon accounting. Carbon accounting is complex. It's imperfect today. We pulled down some of our own LCA reports because we looked back at some of the data, and we could support it legally maybe, but we felt it was greenwashing. So we pulled the report. We said, we don't believe this data. And we think everyone here and the companies we're working with, including hyperscalers, including other storage groups, they're great. And we really want to support what's going on here with OCP. And we also see that, again, as an enterprise and hyperscaler HDD guy, looking at the data I know, I do believe, especially in a data center that has renewable energy, if you look at the embodied carbon impact of SSDs, we do believe that the balance is about right today. Use SSDs where you need to use them, but for the most point, you're going to get the most bang for the buck on embodied carbon out of using HDDs, especially at the very large capacity points that we're looking towards in the future as an industry. Not just speaking for Seagate, but speaking for the other HDD vendors as well. With that, I thank you, and thank you for hearing me out, and I do hope you take a little bit back, those of you who are listening today, and understand that this is something we want to impress upon the entire industry. Thank you.